Welcome to a bonus edition of the Garrett Mason Show. We're going to talk about all things elections, your one-stop voter guide for the November 4th election. And I'm joined today with probably one of the best radio hosts I know in Maine and a very good friend, Ray Richardson from the WLOB radio network, the host of the Ray Richardson Show, and if I may ever so say, Maine's own Rush Limbaugh. So, Ray, thank you for coming on my show. I think we're doing a little bit of a reverse role here.
I love that, Garrett. Thank you. And while you were kind to mention Rush, nobody is in his league. He's the godfather.
He is. I was driving in here today, and Dale, my one of the guys that works with me, said I still listen for the EIB radio network chime every day around noontime, and I still do. I really do. I miss him every day.
I'm with you on that. You know, I started listening to Rush in like 91. One of my friends turned me on to him. And there was a time when, no matter where we were in the country, I would find the Rush station where we were. And at noontime, wait for My City Is Gone and hear that music play. And every now and then I'll play it on the air and just say, this is a tribute to the man who has allowed me to do what I do by doing what he did.
Yeah, I am a Rush baby. I remember growing up, my dad, if I was in the truck with him between 12 and 3, Rush was on.
Oh yeah.
And so I've always been proud to be a Rush baby, learned conservatism through him. And you are one of the guys who's been carrying on that tradition. And so I'm awfully proud to call you a friend, and you've taught me a lot about radio too. So
well, I appreciate that. That's kind of you to say. Thank you.
Well, hey, I wanted to have Ray on today, everyone, because we wanted to. I want to chat through the elections. Off year elections that aren't midterms usually don't have much going on, but this year they do. In Maine, typically we'll have referendum that regarding money. We'll have some sort of spending package. We actually don't have any of that this year. But we have two very big questions on the ballot. And the first one, I'm just going to read the question, Ray, and then you and I can chat about it.
Can I take a nap while you do it?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Question one is a citizens initiative proposed by the Dinner Table PAC and Representative Laurel Libby. It's the voter ID question. Do you want to change Maine's election laws to eliminate 2 days of absentee voting, prohibit requests for absentee ballots by phone or family members, and ongoing absentee voter status for seniors and people with disabilities, ban prepaid postage on absentee ballot return envelopes, and limit the number of drop boxes, and require voters to show certain photo ID before voting, and make other changes to our elections. Ray, how are you voting on question one?
Well, I am voting yes on question one. I certainly want to see a photo ID required for our elections. It's absurd. Everybody, anytime anything happens, and recently we had the 250 ballots that went misplaced to a Newburgh resident. I had Chenavello, Secretary of State, on my show, and she and I have always gotten along for like 20 some odd years, but the first thing is always our elections are safe. Well, you always tell us that. We didn't even have an investigation yet as to how somebody got 250 ballots they weren't supposed to have. So I don't believe that, there is nothing nefarious in any election. I'm not saying that, that we don't have good elections in Maine. I believe we do. But who's ever done a deep dive investigation? But look, let's face it. Yeah. It's a common thing to give a photo ID to do anything. I said this on every day this week on my show. If a good-looking young black woman walks into the bar that you're sitting at and she orders a beer or a glass of vodka and the bartender says to her, "May I see your ID?" not a soul in the bar thinks that's racist. So why would it be racist to ask to show a photo ID to vote?
Well, that's the thing. I also find, number one, this question is absurd.
Right.
I think that the Secretary of State has basically unlimited power to be able to write the question however she wants to write it. And she did. And she's using this to her advantage. Now, let's not forget where Secretary Bellows came from. She was the former executive director of the ACLU in Maine. And so she knew exactly what she was doing and exactly what she could get away with when she wrote this question. I've always gotten along with Shenna too. We served together in the legislature. So, I mean, I know her well, but I mean, this is a blatant partisan attempt to stop something. And, I just pulled up that meme, Ray, where they say all the things you need to have an ID for. And then on the other side, no, it's voting. Rent a hotel room, apply for a hunting or a fishing license, buy a cell phone, pick up a prescription, hold a rally or protest. You have to actually get a permit for that most of the time. There's so many things that you have to get an ID for, and voter ID just is not one of them. And I'd be interested on this with you too, Ray. One of the claims that opponents tend to make that they're not making in this election is that voter ID is racist. And the claim that they make is that minorities can't find a DMV office and they don't have access to it. I mean, I think that comment is probably one of the most racist things I've ever heard.
Well, it's racism of low expectations. It's the worst.
But don't you exactly? But don't you think that the reason that they didn't use that this time is because Republicans and conservatives are starting to call them out on it?
Yeah. I mean, I just find it laughable. First of all, racism is a real thing, and it's devastating when it actually occurs. But when everything is racist, that means nothing is. And what they've done is they drop that word every time there's a disagreement when they have nothing that they can back up their argument with. So they drop the word racism to try to disable you. And it's never bothered me. I had it happen one time, and it bothered me when Obama was first running. I opposed his ideas because I do oppose them. I'm a traditional valued conservative. He is not. And people were like, yeah, you're just against him because he's black. And it shook me. No one had ever said that to me before in earnest. Yeah. People had said that as, well, you're a radio host and you're conservative, of course you're racist, but no big deal. So I spent 3 days thinking about it. And I really I did a lot of self-reflection. And the conclusion that I came to, that if Barack Obama was as lily white as I am, I'm English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, you don't get much whiter than that, and he had the same ideas that the current Barack Obama has, I would oppose him. I would oppose those ideas. It had nothing to do with race. It had to do with very bad ideas. So when somebody says I'm a racist, I just laugh. I'm like, yeah, I don't know you, and you clearly don't know me, and I move on.
Yeah.
But anyhow, back to question one. I mean,
I know we got derailed, but that happens sometimes, Ray. Well, on the radio, we don't have time to go into issues like this. This is good.
Oh, you haven't sat with my wife and listened to my show because I go around the barn twice. But I always tie it up in a big red ribbon. But
that's right.
The thing about this is that Shenna is openly opposing this and advocating and getting out, and anybody that will talk to her about it, she says, I'm against this. Then she wrote the longest question in referendum history, and it's absurd. And the key point of the referendum is photo ID, and then she put that at the very bottom as though it was an also-ran piece of it all. I mean, let's face it, the people that did this, and I respect them for putting it on the ballot, but every Republican referendum I've ever been around overreaches. Why didn't you just say, do you want to require a photo ID to be able to vote in the state of Maine? Boom. Yeah. This would pass 70-30.
That was my concern as well. I've seen some internal polling. It doesn't look good for the question, but if you just simply ask the question, do you want to have a voter ID, a voter identification to vote, it's a winner. But I do think that, Republicans have overreached on this. I think they were going for the whole enchilada, if you will, and it made the referendum unpalatable for a lot of people. I mean, listen, in Maine, a lot of people absentee vote. I absentee vote. I was one of the first people in my town to cast my ballot this year. I usually am every year. And when you start to take that away from people, I think you start to lose the plot. So with that, Ray, I will ask you, what is your prediction? I know you're not a betting man, but what is your prediction on election day? Will yes or no win on question one?
Well, I'll give you my heart and my head. There was a poll recently, UNH did it, and it said it was within a point. Yes and no were within a point on question one. But the school mock election came out yesterday or the day before. I don't recall, sometime this week.
Yeah.
And the question went down 65-35, basically.
Yep.
And while it is a mock election by the students, they're typically pretty accurate and reflective of the parents' values that end up voting. So my heart wants it to pass desperately because I believe we should have it. We have so many people who are in the country illegally. And, you know, people say, well, it's a very small amount. But even Shinna Bellows, the Secretary of State, acknowledged in her Mark Elias podcast that there are people on the voter rolls who are on the voter rolls illegally. If one illegal casts a vote and they cast the vote differently than I did, that means someone who has no legal right to vote just canceled my vote. I'm a citizen of this country. That shouldn't be happening. So my heart is I want this to pass. My head is because of all the gobbledygook within the question. One thing, whether it's in sales or politics, when people are confused, the default answer is no, and I think they'll vote it down.
Yeah, I think so too. That's my gut. I feel the same way. I think, you know, the mock election was really what did it for me too. It's funny you mentioned that because they're wildly correct, not necessarily with numbers, but about eventual, how it's going to go down, who's going to get elected or what issue is going to pass. They're usually very correct because it does reflect the conversation at home. And that's very good insight. But all right, we'll move on to question two, another, small matter. Question two is probably, one of the bigger assaults on our Second Amendment rights that we've seen in recent memory. Another citizens initiative. And just for everyone's knowledge, a citizens initiative with grassroots support is incredibly difficult to achieve. I mean, it's, you got to get a little over 80,000 signatures from registered voters in Maine. That was really question one. Question one was straight up grassroots. I mean, well over 100,000 signatures. They did a great job with that. Question two was paid for by Bloomberg. Everybody knows it. And they paid people to come in, collect signatures, and get this on the ballot. And the question reads, do you want to allow courts to temporarily prohibit a person from having dangerous weapons if law enforcement, family, or household members show that the person poses a significant danger of causing physical injury to themselves and others? This question is taking yellow flag and putting it on steroids.
Amen.
This is an incredibly dangerous thing to implement in Maine. It has been implemented in other states, but Ray, you correct me if I'm wrong. I know you've had a few people on your show to talk about this, but this is essentially if somebody has a beef with you, if you're going through a nasty divorce or, if some other situation like that, and you just go to law enforcement and say, I think that guy's a danger to me, or I think that girl's a danger to me, they can come and they can take your weapons and essentially do it without any due process.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. In a very extraordinary move, the Maine State Troopers Association came out and they said to vote against this. They came out very strongly against it, and they said that the red flag law would make it more dangerous for law enforcement. And if you think about it, of course it's going to. Nobody wants to have their guns taken. Many people feel that that's their personal protection, the protection of their family, and you never know what somebody's going to do when they're in a difficult situation. So they came out against this. By the way, they also came out for photo ID, and they specifically mentioned Shinna Bellows as the reason, which they don't do this normally. But this for me is disgraceful because they're trying to do it on the backs of the memories of the folks that were killed in Lewiston, and they're trying to play on emotions. The yellow flag law in Maine is working, and it's working well. We've kind of figured out how to use it now. This red flag law is unnecessary. But I also think, Garrett, it's unconstitutional. Didi, could you hand me my Maine Constitution, please? I believe it is Article 1, Section 16. I could be wrong about that.
You are right.
But I believe it says, and I want to read it here because you know how they often say that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution is ambiguous. Garrett, this doesn't sound ambiguous. This doesn't sound
There's
ambiguous at all.
nothing about it.
To
Yeah.
keep and bear arms. Every citizen has a right to keep and bear arms, and this right shall never be questioned. Now, that's not ambiguous. So, how do you do this with a red flag law? You are basically walking, that's enshrined in the Constitution. You are walking on someone's unalienable rights.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I also find it interesting. This red flag bill is so dangerous that both Paul LePage and Janet Mills agree on one thing, and it's to vote against question 2. I think Governor Mills came out with an op-ed, if I remember correctly. Former Governor LePage has, you know, denounced it on his own Facebook page. You got the Troopers Association opposing this language. This is a very, very dangerous thing. This bill, if passed, will put Mainers in danger. It absolutely will. And I think the other thing people don't think about with question 2, I used to be the chair of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee when I was in the legislature. And there were similar bills like this that came up from time to time when we were there. And one of the things that the Troopers Association and as well as local police and sheriffs said, we don't have the facilities to safely store the weapons that you're telling us to seize. They don't have the physical ability. And I think so many times when activists get involved in these kind of measures, they don't think through the true logistics of what law enforcement are going to have to do if this is actually implemented. And, you know, this does put law enforcement in huge danger. It makes them decision makers in very volatile situations instead of having to go to a judge and ask a judge to assess a situation and then go from there. This is, in my opinion, it's incredibly dangerous. However, here's my prediction. It's going to pass big time.
Well, it certainly, we used the school mock election earlier. Now the survey by, the poll by UNH said it was very close, or it said it was a little ahead against it. But it won 80-20. 80 were for it, 20 were against it in the student election. And again, students often get those values from their parents. So my heart is, I hope it fails. My head is, Maine is gone wackadoodle. Let's be honest. I love the state. I'm not from here. I moved here 40 years ago with my wife right after we got married. But this state, public policy-wise, has gone wackadoodle. These people are crazy, and they don't respect the citizens they're supposed to serve. This is an infringement on the constitutional rights of every Maine citizen, according to the Maine Constitution. And here's the thing. What are you going to say when you take someone's guns because they're in a nasty divorce, and this is leverage? We've heard that word used a lot federally lately, leverage. And then something happens to that person. Somebody breaks in. They have no way to defend themselves because somebody was looking for leverage in a divorce, and the guns got taken for 10 days. This is wrong. It should never become law. I hope the law court will shoot it down, but they all got to, well, actually, Janet Mills is against this, the governor of Maine, so maybe the law court will see it that way. But yeah, I'm afraid it's going to pass, but I hope it doesn't stand.
Yeah, I agree.
Not every state constitution is as clear as Maine is on gun rights. I mean, Maine's constitution is so clear, it's unbelievable.
It is. And, Maine we've had other issues before, and typically these get lumped into like wildlife type issues. But, we had the question 3 a few years ago. We had another question 2 that was shot down. Mainers will typically shoot things like this down. But I do think that we're living in a different era, right? Especially after Lewiston, we're 2 years removed from the Lewiston shootings. It was very traumatic for a lot of people. And Maine has always been ranked as one of the safest places to live and raise a family in the United States, and it still is. But when you have an issue like that happens, I think it shifts people's opinions and makes them very emotional about it. And I unfortunately think that there's been some heartstrings pulled for a lot of people. But I hope you're right. I hope this goes down because at the end of the day, this is dangerous and needs to go down.
You'll appreciate this. Can you see this?
I can.
This is my U.S. and Maine Constitution, and you'll appreciate who gave it to me. It was Representative Sherm Hutchins. He gave it to me, I don't know, 6, 8 years
Very
ago.
good.
I keep it in studio for my show every day, just so I can do what I did with you. Read the actual language, this unambiguous language about gun rights.
Well, Sherm didn't give me one of those. I wish he did.
Well, he likes me.
Well, there's other referendum that are on the ballot, maybe not on yours or mine, but there is one. And, you know, I people who followed my career, and we've talked about it on the show already, but I serve as a county commissioner in Androscoggin County. And there's a special question, a bond referendum in the Washington County ballot. And it is a bond for $8 million, I believe, to clean up debt that was accrued over the past few years. So it's not a referendum to like build a new jail or whatever. It's a referendum. Basically, you're borrowing money to pay off debt. Incredibly dangerous. One of the reason that I wanted to bring this up is it's something that you and I have talked about before, Ray.
Right.
Is that you know, what is going on in this situation is for 3 years, this is one of the larger issues of what happened in Washington County. For 3 years, they couldn't get an auditor to come and audit their books. I know this firsthand. Getting an auditor to come and do county and town work is very difficult because we simply don't have the people to do it. I mean, Matt Dunlap. I know both you and I know Matt Dunlap. We're friends.
Of course.
Matt Dunlap was elected state auditor by the state legislature, and he was not a certified auditor. He wasn't actually able to do the job, yet he was elected to it by the legislature. That shows you how difficult it is to find an auditor in the state of Maine. And now we have one of Maine's most rural counties at risk of defaulting. In fact, Senator Marianne Moore had to put in a bill through Legislative Council to say, hey, we may need some money from you if this referendum passes. I know the people in Washington County, when I ran for governor in 2018, they voted for me in pretty good numbers. The people in Washington County are very conservative, and they are not happy with the fact that the county commissioners are asking them for an $8 million bond bailout. I think they're going to vote it down. But I think it speaks to the brain drain that's going on in the state of Maine. Nobody wants to stay. A lot of these jobs are going unfilled. Like if somebody wanted to be an auditor and get certified to do that work, they could make a killing because counties and towns can't find them right now. I just was curious on your take on this. It's a kind of a niche issue, but I think what you're going to find is you're going to see more towns and more counties start to reach insolvency because of the lack of these type of trades, and also because people cannot afford these high government taxes and services anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I hope they vote it down. I think if they don't vote it down, then they bail it out and it gets swept under the rug and see you later, and nobody says anything about it. I think it's a very bad precedent. Okay, there's no question having an auditor is important, but you could have a bookkeeper who could keep the books, even if it wasn't audited as a certified audit, who could keep the books. But this is a mess there. We did a lot on it for a while. I had people calling in. I hope the people of Washington County vote it down. I think there has to be an accountable moment here. And if there isn't, more of this is going to happen because in politics, you know this, Garrett, you've been around this game a long time. In politics, it doesn't work the way it does in real life. In real life, if you do something you shouldn't have done and you don't get held accountable, you hit your knees, you ask God for forgiveness, you go and seek forgiveness from whomever you wronged, and you make a solemn vow you'll never do it again. In politics, if you do something you shouldn't have done, you get away with it. You're like, well, what can I get away with next? It's just a very different world.
Exactly. And that's what's going on in healthcare right now with the government shutdown.
Right.
And we'll talk about this on another show. But that's what's going on right now is, nobody made out better on health insurance than the health insurance companies. If you look at a graph of the profitability of health insurance companies from the time Obamacare was passed until now, you will see a straight up profit over those 15 years. And, Democrats are blaming Republicans right now for rolling back subsidies. Well, the reason the subsidies are so high is because nobody can afford health insurance. Exactly. And if you have a backstop of the federal government willing to pay these things for you, you can do whatever you want. And that's what's happening in some of these towns. And, that goes on to my other...
I'm just really glad you brought that up. This is such a great point. They're begging for these enhanced subsidies. Number one, Democrats put them in place during COVID. Then they reauthorized them, but they never made them permanent. They allowed them to sunset in December 31 in 2025. Republicans did not support this. And the problem that we face here is the problem we all said was going to happen. Obamacare was never a cost containment program. It was a way to put people on health insurance, have it balloon, have it fail, and then go back to the country and say, we tried private insurance, we tried a public-private partnership, the only thing left is government-run single payer. Barack Obama gave a speech in 2007 to the AFL-CIO in Chicago, and he said flat out, and anybody can look it up, that he wanted single payer, but it can never happen in one step. He would have to do it in two steps. Obamacare was step one.
That's right. And this is, I'm so glad you said that, because what is happening right now is by design. This is exactly as it was designed to go. It was designed to make private health insurance completely unaffordable and drive everybody to single payer health care. And I think the difference, though, is that Donald Trump and Republicans in the Senate have now completely exposed them for what this actually is. And I'm hopeful we can start having a conversation about repealing the ACA again, but that's a completely different subject. But the point is, if you have the government and by de facto the citizens, the taxpayers, held at literal gunpoint to pay their taxes, and then you just say, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore, that's the only revolt you have. And I think that the citizens of Washington County, I think they're going to say no, and I think we'll have to grapple with that decision after it's done. But people just can't afford this stuff anymore. Now we're going to bond out. We're going to bond out debt. Yeah. Bond out debt. Insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's completely insane. It's no way to run a train station. It's no way to do anything. And you're right. They have to vote this down. By voting it down, they make sure that the people who did this through recklessness, again, they've got to vote it down, because if they don't vote it down, it's going to happen again. Yeah. Because in politics, when you get away with it one time, you're going to see what else you can get away with. It's just crazy. I do want to go back to one thing very quickly on Obamacare.
Yeah.
They are treating these enhanced subsidies are exactly like Joe Biden's student loan debt forgiveness.
Yes.
It is not dealing with the issue. The issue is rising healthcare costs. They're not dealing with that. They're just saying, yeah, they're going way up. We're going to let the taxpayers or the money we borrow from Japan and China or whatever the hamster prints in the printing press in the basement of the Treasury, we're going to let that pay for it. But we're not going to dare talk about what the driving cost is, which is runaway healthcare costs. And it's the same thing with college education. Instead of getting to the root cause of why college education is so expensive, he just decided we'll forgive the debt and that'll be the answer.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So,
grown-ups don't act this way.
So I think it was NYU. I could be wrong. I'm going to find this, and we're going to throw the graphic up after I find it afterwards. But it's a graphic that shows how law school tuition for a year kept going up and up and up and up. And then when President Trump capped student loan debt to $200,000, all of a sudden, the cost of a 4-year degree or a 4-year law was $50,000. It's now $50,000.
Right.
Isn't that magic? It's magic. Now that you can't grift and extort people who are 17 and 18 years old, the cost is all of a sudden affordable. It's because it always was affordable. It's that these colleges and universities who are run by mostly Marxist professors have figured out how to extort the federal government on the backs of students. And it's no different with healthcare. And for once, we're finally standing up to this garbage and saying no. And it's incredibly refreshing.
And that's the biggest problem right there. You nailed it. For once, they're finally standing up and saying no. Nobody's used to that anymore.
No.
Nobody says no. We always compromise and negotiate, and the taxpayer, the American taxpayer, is the one that takes it on the chin. So we'll see what happens here. My guess is once they reopen the government, they'll negotiate the enhanced premiums and the enhanced subsidies for the premiums, and they'll get passed by the end of the year, and we'll move along. But the fact is, it does nothing at all, because healthcare costs are going to continue to skyrocket because there's no containment, there's no transparency, and frankly, there's little accountability.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to another question I have for you as we bring this thing in for a landing. So there are still a shocking, and it may be a record amount of school districts that still do not have a school budget passed for the current operating year. I can tell you in my town of Lisbon, that is still the case. We're going back to the polls on November 4th for a third time to vote on the school budget. In our town specifically, taxes were raised in 1 year, 26% for some people, a 26% tax increase in property taxes in our town. I know that that's the case in many places. Ours is one of the higher ones. But, I think that for a lot of towns, this is the only way to say no to runaway government spending, whether that be at the municipal level or whether that be at the school level. It's the only way that citizens have to say no. There's been a full-blown tax revolt in our town. In fact, there's a slate of candidates running on this matter alone. But it's not just my little town of Lisbon. It's really in many places across the state. And so there's a lot of school budget referendums on the ballot in November for the first time ever, Ray. And I'm just curious about your thoughts on that. Are we going to see more voted down, or what are we going to see?
Oh, I think the people of Maine, it's a really, I'll be honest with you, I'm in a difficult position these days. I know the people of Maine are good people. I've had the privilege through 25 years of public life. DD and I, best guesstimate, I've met 100,000 of them. That's a pretty good sample size. They're the best people I've ever known, but for some reason, they have not yet connected the very bad public policies, which have caused lower household incomes, higher tax burden, higher property taxes, bad roads. Our infrastructure is ranked dead last 3 out of the last 4 years, an education system that is actually going down. We're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to fourth graders in math and reading. For some reason, our people haven't connected those bad things with the bad public policy that's come out of Augusta or your various town halls.
Yeah.
But I think this school referendum process is beginning for people to see, wait a minute, our scores aren't going up. Our schools are ranked low in the state. Number one ranked school in the state of Maine, according to U.S. News and World Report, is Greeley High School. It's ranked 556th in the country, which means all the other states have 12 schools in their state that are ranked higher than our number one school. And my only point here is, it wasn't that way always. 91, 92, we led the nation in math and science. Something's happened here.
Yeah.
And what's happened is we are spending an inordinate amount of money on public education, but we're not getting the results. And I think these budgets that have been voted down are beginning to reflect the frustration of parents who are seeing their taxes rise and their child's education going down. So I'm hoping that more of this will happen. We did it in my hometown last year, my hometown of Westbrook. We voted down the first budget. They went and quickly cut $719,000 out of it, and then it passed by about 10 votes. I actually, one of the reasons that my wife and I, after 34 years, are selling our home and leaving Westbrook is because I feel like they lied to us. They said, we have cut muscle and bone. We can't cut anymore. And then as soon as the education referendum failed, within days, they cut $700,000 more. And then they said later on when questioned, well, we didn't want to cut anymore. Yeah. Okay, fine, but you got to look at the taxpayers. I mean, Garrett, you talked about a 26% increase in your hometown. Statewide property taxes are choking. I mean, we've always heard the myth. They have no income tax and no sales tax in New Hampshire, but their property taxes are so much higher. Well, now Maine is ranked third, and they're ranked fourth.
They're not that high.
Taxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just crazy. And
Right.
overall, though, we're ranked second with this new Family and Medical Paid Leave Act that took effect in January. We're number 2 in the country in tax burden. New Hampshire overall is ranked 46. So I would take New Hampshire's tax situation. I would also take their household income. We're at 65.6 for our household income, and they're $19,300 higher than we are. So again, I think people are finally beginning to realize the economic struggle they face is because of bad public policy decisions. At least I hope that.
Well, I think we're going to start to see that. I think we're definitely going to start to see that in the next year. We start off a sprint towards the midterms. And if people can say what they want about President Trump and about Republicans in Congress, but they have delivered what they have promised, and that is an America First policy agenda. And I think people can be the judge of that in next November. And from everything that I'm seeing right now, I think that people are happy that somebody's finally sticking up to them, not only on the world stage, but actually right here in Washington, D.C. as well. And hopefully we can get that same treatment here in Maine with a Republican legislature and a Republican governor. Ray, one more crazy thing I want to talk to you about. Legislative Council was this week. The Maine legislature was looking at the bills that they were going to put in for the next session starting in January. Maine has actually done an AI task force over the summer, and there's been some recommendations that have come out to talk about what we can do to protect kids and what we can do to protect people from AI. I think, Elon Musk has said that AI could be the best thing that's ever happened to humanity. It could also be the worst, and we have to do what we can to find the middle ground on how to use AI in the best possible way. One of the bills that came through was from a Democrat, by the way, and it was a suggestion of the AI task force, and it would have made producing AI child porn a felony under Maine law and prosecutable. Right now, it's not, because there's no actual person involved. It's just imagery, incredibly graphic and horrible imagery. One thing I will tell you as background, Maine has one of the best computer crime units in the country. We solve more crimes per capita through our computer crimes unit than anybody else in the country. Our good friend Bill Diamond, who passed away last month, was a huge advocate. He taught me a lot about what they do over there. And this is stuff that they want to prosecute. They want to put these people in jail, and they want to do something about this. And this bill may have been the start to doing that. But the Legislative Council, 6 Democrats, 4 Republicans, voted it down. 5 Democrats voted it down. 1 did not. Ray, I'm curious about your thoughts on this, because this isn't the first time something like this has happened.
Yeah, Nick Adolphson, who's now head of the Christian Civic League of Maine, came and spoke to a group last week that my wife Dee Dee and I are involved in. And then he had, do you want to make a comment? And my comment was simply this, that we have taken what have long been held as right and wrong issues in this country and in the state, and we've turned them into political issues. Anything to do with child pornography should be prosecutable. Our children are already in enough danger from the predators on the street, sometimes even the predators in the school. I don't know how much you have a chance to read, but about stuff around the country.
Yeah, 100%.
But you would be shocked at the number of teachers that have been prosecuted for having sexual relations or sexual innuendo with children. It has risen dramatically. So anytime we can take a step and use law enforcement to combat this, we should be doing it. And I just don't get it. It's like the books that are in the library in some of the schools. Genderqueer was a hot button issue for a while. I actually went and got the book and read it. It was absolutely disgusting. The imagery that was in that book made me sick. And the fact that a 4th grader would be able to see that, I don't understand what is the matter with any elected person or any adult that would find it okay to promote pornography to a child.
Well, and that's the thing. You talk about genderqueer. One of the things I want to tell leftist politicians is that when you put obscene material in a library of a school and proclaim that it's free speech and that it should be there, no, it's not. We're not running a
No.
Barnes and Noble. We are running
Right.
a high school and sometimes elementary school library, and it is not okay for you to put porn on the bookshelf. It is absurd to me that anybody would say that we shouldn't censor what is in the public school library. I mean, it's wild to me, completely wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. As Caitlin Clark would say, porn ain't my thing. So it's not something I engage in. My wife doesn't engage in it. It's just, I've never understood it. It's kind of like getting drunk. I don't understand that either. I've never been drunk. But my only point here is that children need guidelines. And when you allow pornography to get into the schools, you're normalizing pornography. So then the next question is, what's the purpose of that? Why can't we let children be children? Didi and I raised 4 kids, and we had 5 other children, not foster kids, but 5 other children live with us anywhere from 3 months to 5 years because they needed some help, and we were in a position to help them. And children need to be loved and supported, and they need to be protected from the evils of the world because they're only children for a short period of time. And, the bottom line here is this is ridiculous behavior. If you'll recall, and you and I talked about it, had talked about it many times, when we first started talking about human trafficking, 15 years ago, I think it was, might have been 12, we did a 5-part series daily on human trafficking in the state of Maine. And Amy Volk, a former state senator, put in a bill to deal with human trafficking in Maine. And the former chair of the Democratic Party, Ben Grant, came out and said, that's not a problem here. Amy's just trying to soften her sharp edges. She wants to run for another office. Yeah, and it's just crazy. Look, these are real world problems, and there are a lot of good people in Maine, but there are some predators out there, and we have to protect these kids. And when you normalize things like child porn, a kid sees it in the school. Well, why is this here? Oh, I'm surprised I didn't know about this. And now all of a sudden they're used to it. It just makes them more vulnerable. It makes me wonder, some of these folks in Augusta, if they even have children, because they're not protective of them. Yeah. Maine is a wonderful state. We have wonderful people. We know it's pretty safe. But if we're going to pretend, because those things are true, that children aren't vulnerable, then let's start looking at the Child Protective Services Program of the Department of Health and Human Services, and somebody answer why 149 kids are dead in the last 6 years and 10 months.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you look at the Walk a Mile program and what Bill Diamond did with that, and now Senator Brad Farron and Senator Jeff Timberlake. I mean, there's so many issues that can be corrected that would make kids' lives better, and the administration just simply is not tackling that. You have caseworkers who are completely overloaded. You have kids who are being what's called hoteled, where they are living in hotels with a rotating door of social services workers. It's absolutely criminal what's going on in the HHS system, and the next legislature, next governor, because this legislature is certainly not taking care of it, needs to go in for a deep dive. And I do have to say, the OPEGA committee, some of the Democrats on there have joined with Republicans in trying to get to the bottom of some of these issues. Craig Hickman has done a great job, and they've proposed some revolutionary bills that I think could do some real good. And let's hope that a legislature eventually takes it up.
You're right, Garrett. As I said, I've said it several times, but I say it on my show every day. I love Maine. I live here by choice. I didn't have to live here. I didn't have to come here, and I don't have to stay here. But I love Maine, and I believe Maine is a good place. But, and I don't want to get into the issue of abortion. No matter what you think about abortion, here's the truth. Governor Mills changed the law to where a child can now be aborted up till birth.
That's right.
If somehow that child does not lose their life during that process, then the way Department of Health and Human Services works right now, they're not protected if they're in a terrible situation with parents that beat them. Little Maddox Williams, a 3-year-old boy,
I know.
His monster mother, who had terrible, terrible record, just should never have been around him, literally abandoned him under the legal definition made by the state of Maine legislature, and they reunited him with her, breaking their own law, and she stomped him to death. little 3-year-old boy, sweet looking kid. My grandson looks a lot like him. So if somehow a child survives all that, when you get into Maine's educational system, if you happen to be a child with special needs, the federal government under Merrick Garland and Joe Biden sued the Democratic administration here in Maine twice and forced us to sign a consent decree because we would not provide special needs help to these children. So while I love Maine, our government has not protected children or supported children. Children are vulnerable because of Maine's government.
So true. So true. Well, Ray, I've really enjoyed having you. It's been fun to be on this side of the microphone and chat with you. Is there anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Well, I'm just wondering Garrett, if you have any big announcements coming up anytime in the near future. Is there any things you're thinking about? Are there any sugar plums dancing in your head? It's about that time.
Just the ones for Christmas, Ray. Just the ones for Christmas.
Well, Christmas is always in your heart.
That's right. That's right. Well, Ray, thanks for coming on. You can listen to Ray Monday through Friday on WLOB 100.5, right, Ray?
Right.
Or you can listen to him online. His wife, Dee Dee, clips incredible speeds so that you can listen to them right away on Ray's website. So, Ray Richardson, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Garrett Mason, appreciate you, man. I hope to see you soon.
Sounds good.